Hello, everybody. Here we go. We're going live. Just checking the video there. Hello, everyone. If you are with me, you know the drill. Please let me know in the comments. Give me a hello or a wave or whatever it is that you feel like doing. Yes, it is Wednesday. Yes, we are here for the midweek momentum. So if that's what you were expecting, great, you are in the right place. Just checking. All right. Well, yeah, it's Wednesday. Hey, Narelle. Yes, you got here. Amazing. Excellent. Don't forget, stay home, stay safe. So for everybody that is coming and joining me for the live tonight, I'm based in Brisbane, Australia, and so we apparently are facing a cyclone. We've got a cyclone that's going to hit in the next 24, 48 hours. Hello, Crystal. Hello, Sophia. Great to have you all here. I hope you're safe. I hope you're all bunkered in a nice, safe place and feeling calm and in control. So yes, this is a pretty new experience for a lot of us, right? We in Brisbane or Gold Coast or even northern New South Wales of Australia, we don't tend to normally get cyclones. So it's a very weird experience right now. Everyone's panic buying, so you can't get bread, you can't get milk, you can't get eggs. Couldn't get eggs anyway. You can't get, I don't know, whatever else is going on. But the main thing is that everybody is taking precautions and so doing all of the things that they can do to stay safe. We've got Wendy. Hello, Wendy. So in the UK, frost on the ground and 1 degree. Ooh, you're back to chilly again. Yes, we are definitely doing our best to stay safe. So, and I was just chatting with my daughter. It's a very weird feeling right now because everything on the news, everything in the media, everything everywhere, people are talking about this cyclone. But you wouldn't really know that we've got a cyclone coming because it all looks pretty normal other than the odd shower of rain right now. It all looks pretty normal. So that's why I thought absolutely no problems in going ahead with our live today. So I am really grateful to all of you who have joined. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of something else to think about. Take your mind off of that for people in Brisbane. All right, so let's jump in. I've got another great topic for us to talk about today. And again, I've come across this particular topic because, you know, the past couple of weeks, we've really had a great flow in the topics and they've really been following on from each other nicely. So last week we talked about, really sort of being confident and those sorts of things. So it really now feels like it makes sense for us to start talking about boundaries, because if we're starting to rebuild our confidence and our self-trust and we're doing better with our decision making and we're confident in that, really the next challenge that can help us hold our ground and protect our energy is boundaries. And I do know how hard it is to say no without feeling guilty or selfish. And sometimes it's not the setting of the boundaries, but it's actually sticking to the boundaries. That's difficult, right? Without backing down. So, we also worry about prioritizing ourselves without disappointing other people. Nobody wants to disappoint anybody else. So because we've spent so long looking after other people or being a people pleaser and playing the good girl role, being very good, it's time to really talk about how we can set some boundaries. So don't forget, ladies, if you are not here, but you do go back and watch this as a replay, let us know. Do the hashtag replay in the comments. And that means that we can continue this conversation because these are never one-offs. These things are, they're tools and tips and challenges that don't necessarily get resolved with one Facebook Live. We listen to that, we write a few comments, and then, you know, everything's fixed. It's something that we need to keep going back to. Okay. So definitely make sure if you're watching on the replay that you do let me know. And then, like I said, we can continue the conversation. Hello, Michelle. Hope you're well. Thanks for joining. All right. So let's recap a little bit on last week. So last week we talked about trusting yourself again and rebuilding confidence in your decisions. And again, the feedback was incredible. So thank you, ladies, who got back to me. I really do appreciate that. It helps me know that you're getting what you need. Okay. Some of the things that were said to me were, I'm starting to trust myself a little bit more. But when I try and set a boundary, I feel really guilty for it. So what can I do about that? And then I know somebody else said, I know I need to say no, but I don't want to let people down. Right? Like I said, none of us want to do that. And another lady actually even said to me, I finally did it. I made a decision for myself. I made it for me, but now I'm actually a bit afraid of what the reaction is going to be. So if any of those things sound familiar to you, clearly you're not alone, because I had that feedback. And so again, that's why we're diving into the boundaries. And I guess it starts with the question, why is it so damn hard to say no? Right? As children don't seem to have a problem saying no. They manage to say no at all of the wrong times. So they don't have a problem with it. So when does this start to happen? And why does this start to happen? The most obvious place to me that it starts is that we were taught to be nice and agreeable. Now, ladies, if you're in this Facebook group, you probably fall under the Gen X category, or midlife, or you're somewhere over, that 38 years of age. Around in that time when we were raised, we really were taught to be nice and agreeable. We were raised to be accommodating, nurturing, and selfless. So from a young age, we were told, be a good girl, don't upset people. It's your job to make others happy. Or even if we didn't hear that, we potentially watched our mothers or our caregivers do those things, which is almost the same as being told that. Then the next obvious reason, or maybe not so obvious, but the next reason that I see it becomes hard to say no is because we fear being seen as selfish or difficult, right? So the moment we set a boundary, what happens? Oh, she's changed. Oh, she's being really difficult. She used to be so nice. Have you ever heard any of those things? I've heard some of those things said about me, but I've also been around when people have said that about other people, other women, because they've finally, just said no to something, and she's really difficult today, right? So I guess the thing to take away from that is that setting a boundary is not about being mean. It's necessary. If we constantly give all of ourselves, there is nothing left. Nothing left. We can't serve anybody when there's nothing left. Right? If we look at some of the health issues that we battle or we're struggling with in this age category, a lot of it comes down to stress and burnout and always giving to somebody else. So being the first to eat, the last to eat. So make sure everybody else is all okay. Oh, there's not quite enough for everybody. I'll have less. So we're not always getting all the nutrients that we need. I have definitely found myself doing, as much as I can to get some stuff done because I want to be productive and I want to fit a lot into the day. And it has been, 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon before I realize I actually haven't even eaten, let alone have a glass of water. Now, that hasn't happened to me for a very long time, but that used to be me. So no wonder we feel tired and there's nothing left, or our fuses are short and we are really cranky. There's nothing left, right? And then there's the we feel responsible for other people's feelings, right? So how many of you have said yes to something just to keep the peace? It's just easier. I have done that. Women are conditioned, I believe, to prioritize harmony over honesty. Because again, when we're being honest, we are being really difficult. Why are you challenging everything? Why don't you agree with me? But constantly saying yes, all that actually does when we do that to avoid conflict just means that we're saying no to ourselves. And we go back to the last step that I was talking about, it means there's nothing left for us. So we're tired, we're exhausted, we're resentful. Our health suffers, relationships suffer. I've even known finances to suffer because of this very thing. So I'll just try and make myself feel better and I'll buy that thing. And all of a sudden, it's 5-10 minutes later and it doesn't feel any better. So I buy another thing, online shopping, very guilty for encouraging this sort of behavior. Narelle's felt it. She's done a lot of things when she didn't really want to and was continually told that she was being difficult because she disagreed with people in her family, right? It happens. Yeah, I see a lot of you people pleasing. Yeah. Wendy's definitely said yes when she didn't really want to. We've all done it. And so honestly, when I say you're not alone, I really mean you're not alone. We really do just need to start becoming aware of this. And by saying you're not alone, again, it doesn't solve the issue. It doesn't change anything, but it's a start. Because once we see that there is nothing wrong with us, that we are not broken, we can start to change our actions, our behaviors, and our thought loops. Okay, so that's what we're trying to do here. All right, so let's talk about the cost, because this really has been very, I think, helpful and impactful over the last couple of weeks. So what is the real cost of having weak boundaries or not setting any boundaries? Let me tell you this, every time you say yes to something that drains you, you're saying no to something that fuels you. So if you are saying yes to something that drains you, you become exhausted, resentful, and overwhelmed. So yes, I have already mentioned that. But what you're also doing is you're also teaching people that your time isn't valuable, which means you never get any time for yourself. So go back to the exhausted, resentful, and overwhelmed. And what's the cost of being exhausted, resentful, and overwhelmed? Poor health, poor finances, poor self-esteem, lack of trust, poor decision making, difficulties at work. Difficulties at work can then mean no work. Same as exhausted can mean no work. What's the cost? What's the impact of having no work? We're back to the finances again. We're back to the low self-esteem. It's all, if you're thinking this is a very small thing, it's not. It all goes around in a circle. And most importantly, you lose sight of what you actually want. And that's what we're trying to get back here. Okay. So think about this. A woman without boundaries is a woman who is constantly exhausted, unfulfilled, and living for everyone else but herself. And I ask you, what sort of life is that? Okay, what sort of life is that? Right, let's get into some useful tips here. Okay, so again, I've got 3 tips to help you set boundaries without the guilt. Okay. Step number 1, know your non-negotiables. So before you set a boundary, you need to know what actually matters to you. Otherwise, you're setting a boundary you're never going to be able to stick to. You're never going to be able to enforce. In fact, you'll probably forget it yourself because it didn't mean anything to you. So it's got to be something that actually matters to you. So here's an action you can take. Make a list of your non-negotiables. And they're your non-negotiables. You can compare with a bestie. You can have a conversation around it with potentially you've got an accountability partner in the group here. However, remember that they're yours. And that person may be very, very different. So it's got to be the things you will no longer sacrifice. Now, that may feel really restrictive when I say no longer sacrifice. Maybe it's around a particular goal. And so when we say no longer, it might just be the length of that goal. So it might be 6 months. It doesn't mean it's for the rest of your life. We're not locking anything in here. We're changing patterns, behaviors, and other people's interpretation and the way they behave to us. Okay? So an example might be your time. No more overcommitting. We all have the same amount of hours in a day. And it used to drive me nuts when people used to say that. So people would be, oh, I'm really busy. Well, we've all got the same amount of time in the day. Yes, we do, but we all have different responsibilities and different values, things that are different for us. Okay, so I can easily say to you, you've got enough time in the day to go and exercise. But if exercise is really not important to you at all, it's not going to be one of your non-negotiables. You have to work harder at that. We're starting right now with the things that are really your non-negotiables that you know you need to work on. So your time, no more overcommitting. If you look at your calendar, excuse me, and there's a few blocks in there of things to do if you're using an electronic calendar like I do, but there's a little bit of an overlap, or you get a text message from a friend saying, oh, could you just, do you have time to just, I'm stuck at work. Could you get me like a bottle of milk or something like that? You might typically go, yeah, of course, no worries. I've got about 10 minutes between meetings or between appointments. No. Rushing from one to another, guess whose thing is going to be sacrificed? It's not your friend getting a bottle of milk, it's your meeting or your appointment or your stress or your calm that's going to sacrifice. So look at your calendar and really see, can you really achieve that and achieve the level of calm that you're wanting or the level of respect that you deserve? The other thing you could look at is you can look at your energy. So if there are relationships, people around you, and I really don't like to use the word toxic, but if they are not giving you energy in return, positive energy, if they are only draining it from you, then it is time for you to start saying no to interacting with them perhaps as often. How can you start to reduce the interactions, reduce the time, and reduce the draining of the energy? One of your non-negotiables might be your peace, calm, peace of mind, those sorts of things. So really, you want to be not saying yes out of obligation. You really want to be aware of doing that. And every time you go to say yes, really question, am I doing this because I want to do it? Am I doing it because I can do it? Am I doing it because I feel like I should do it? Okay, and we'll go back to that question. Is it something you really want? Yeah. So Wendy's talking about living in fear of upsetting people by not saying no. Yeah. Been doing it for such a long time. Such a long time. You watched others do it. And you're most concerned about people who really care about you or that you really love. So, of course, we don't want to upset them. But what we also don't want to do is be sick. We don't want to have no energy at all that we're hospitalized and we can't spend time with them anyway. So we do have to prioritize the impact. Okay. So I've got a little mini challenge for you on this one. Think about a non-negotiable, and I would love it if one comes to mind that you drop it in the comments now. What's something you refuse to compromise on anymore? Right, we'll come back to that and see if we've got any non-negotiables that anyone's willing to share. Meanwhile, let's go into step number 2. So step number 2 is really mastering the art of saying no without over-explaining. So this is one of the biggest mistakes we can make is when we set boundaries, but we over-explain the boundary. So we're almost just talking everybody out of this boundary. A strong no doesn't need a justification. It's not a debate. There's a full stop in a sentence. Use it. Pause. And move on. You also don't have to, it's in the tone of delivery as well that makes such a big difference. And don't get concerned when you see a little look of shock on the other person's face, because remember, we haven't been saying no to them very often, if at all. So they're going to be a little bit shocked. So some examples might be, I'm so sorry, but I just can't commit right now. That's very, very apologetic in an explanation. Or I would, but I've got a lot going on, maybe next time. And that leaves room for negotiation. Whereas you could try, no, I can't commit to that. Clear, firm, used my full stop. Or that doesn't work for me. Full stop, no excuses needed. Now, what you can do here to help practice, because again, these things do take practice, is say them to yourself in the mirror. Obviously, when no one else is around, have some quiet time with yourself and say it in the mirror. Look at yourself in the eye and practice saying no without an apology or an excuse. Okay? Now, we do have a non-negotiable. Here we go. Sophia is saying 1 hour rest before bed. Oh my goodness, that's such an important one, Sophia. Beautiful. Oh, I love it. Crystal's saying being able to spend time alone to do as I wish. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? It sounds so simple, right? And these are the things you cannot have if you're saying yes to everything all of the time. Okay, let's talk about step number 3. So this is really where I want you to hold your boundary, even when people push back. Okay, because again, they're not used to you saying no. This is a complete surprise. So out of surprise, they might almost sort of, well, what do you mean that doesn't work for you? I've never heard you say that before. Well, what about if I said this? And that's when they start negotiating with you. So when you start setting boundaries, some people won't like it. That is the absolute truth. And sometimes that's just because they're not expecting it, but sometimes it's because it makes them uncomfortable. Okay? It's okay. Not everybody has to like everything. Long as we're not rude, long as we're not offensive, we're respectful. So, how do we handle a pushback? If they get upset, I want you to remember that their reaction is not your responsibility. If they try to guilt trip you, this is where you need to hold firm. I hear you, but this is what's best for me. Full stop. If they try to negotiate, stay neutral, which is sometimes the hardest part, stay calm. I've already made my decision. Full stop. The shorter your answers are, the less negotiation that can happen. I want you to remember, and this might be a really great thing to write on a post. I was looking for post-it notes. I'm at a different desk. I don't have a post-it note. Might be a really good thing to write on a post-it note and put on a mirror or put somewhere where you can check in. But a boundary isn't a request. It's a statement of what you will and won't accept. That's all it is. But the power and the impact that can give you is life-changing. Okay, it can be very positive for relationships. Once everybody knows, they know where they stand. Wendy, try saying no to her daughter. Her daughter is my cousin, and yeah, I can kind of see what you're saying. I was more thinking you would have trouble saying no to your grandchildren. Sounds like there's a little private family conversation we might need to have there. So Narelle, she is saying that I'm bad with giving a reason why I can't do something and doesn't use the full stop. So that is true. Narelle and I have had a catch up today and we have talked about that. But again, this is the awareness piece, Narelle. This is where we're starting to become aware that we're not doing the full stop. Okay. So the thought loops, if you find yourself talking a little bit too much and you have to take a breath, it's because you've spoken too much. You're probably giving too much of an explanation. Wendy never says no to the grandkids. That I believe. All right, here's a quick challenge for you. Now that we've started to uncover the why boundaries are so hard, and this is really just an uncovery piece in this session, right? We could go on for hours regarding this, and it is practice, so it will happen over time. But we've talked also about how to set them. Really, now what needs to happen, all good learning comes from putting it into practice. Okay, so let's be brave, ladies. Let's share amongst ourselves. In the comment, let me know one boundary you're setting this week. Just one boundary you're setting this week. And then what you're going to do as your homework, you're going to practice saying no without guilt. So you're going to take that boundary. You're going to look at yourself in the mirror as often as you can throughout the week and practice saying that to yourself with a full stop. No explanation required. You're going to set your non-negotiable and you're going to stick to it. Okay, you're going to hold your ground even when others look stunned, shocked, maybe even laugh out of awkwardness, or when they push back. You're going to hold your ground. Remember the full stop. Okay, that is your homework. That's your challenge. Wendy's going to practice saying no. Okay, I'm assuming that's to your daughter. All right, ladies, have we got any other boundaries? Oh, Narelle needs a little bit of time to think about it. I'm going to give you that little bit of time. Thank you, Wendy. Everybody will absolutely do their best to stay safe. I know it. So thank you, everybody, obviously, for being with us for this session. Just remember that it's time to stop feeling guilty for protecting your time, energy, and peace. Now, that's very easy for me to say in this session. I get that. But use the tools that we've been talking about over the past couple of weeks. The recordings are available for you in the Facebook group, so you can go back and watch them at any time. And if a question comes up for you, pop it in the comments and let's continue the conversation. Let's continue the practice. Let's continue the learning. But next time you hesitate to set a boundary, remember that you are not responsible for other people's reactions. You are responsible for your own well-being. That's what you're doing. Okay? Remember, as always, if you know somebody that needs to hear this, please share this with them, invite them to the group, or let me know and I can make sure that they get a copy of the replay. All right, here's a final thought for you before you go. A woman with strong boundaries is not rude. She's finally just putting herself first, and that is a beautiful thing. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being with me. Take care, stay safe, and much love to you all. Thank you for being with me.